Welcome back. I'm your host, Renata McElveny, a creativity coach for neurodivergent and multi-passionate women of color. And in this show, we talk about all things creativity as it relates to our self-discovery and healing journey. Let's get started. So, I've been chatting with many women who are clearly multi-passionate, multifaceted women, talented in many different ways. And one of the common threads that has come up in these conversations is this feeling that even though these women are clearly curious about many different things, are constantly diving deep into a bunch of different topics, they go into these rabbit holes and they like to explore different aspects of the human condition that fascinate them. Undoubtedly, the conversation tends to take a turn at some point, and they'll be telling me all about things that they're into, and suddenly there's a but. And that but is followed by things like, but how am I supposed to pick the one thing that I need to be doing? But I'm feeling pressure to monetize my various passions. And a lot of these women are starting to explore creative entrepreneurship, thinking about a potential project that they want to take on. But it feels like if they do that, that means that they have to neglect everything that they're interested in and just focus on that one thing. So today, I want to chat with you about why you need to embrace your multi passionate nature, why you need to stop trying to be understood and be neatly labeled into a box for easy consumption, and the importance of making space for open ended explorations and personal projects that can support you in your well being and joy. If this is something you're interested in, then keep listening, keep watching if you are on YouTube, and let's get into it. First and foremost, let's talk about why you need to embrace your multi passionate self. If you're listening to this podcast and you identify as somebody that is multi passionate, a multi potentialite, you're in the right place. This is exactly why I created this podcast, because I know there's so many of us out there who like to do a bunch of different things. And I'm starting to see more talk around the internet about this. But this wasn't something that I personally grew up hearing, that it was okay to be multi passionate. And I think this is a huge discovery, because once you realize that you like to do all these different things, it's such a mind opening experience. And I think it's something that takes a while to really come into and understand how it's even been playing out in your life. Because likely you have been trying to do a lot of different things, and in the back of your mind you probably thought, like, when is this all going to start to make sense? When is it all going to start to come together? Why can't I just focus on the one thing that I should be focusing on? Because that's what we hear in society. We hear that we have to pick a lane and stick with it. So it's not uncommon that it's kind of a shocker when we realize that this is an option, a way of living life. So I want to say, for once and for all, it's okay if you like to do a bunch of different things. And as we go through this episode, I hope that you start to understand why I say this and why I'm encouraging you to embrace this. And as women identifying people, I think there's a natural tendency to be conditioned and molded into having the ability to multitask and do a bunch of different things, because we're constantly taking care of other people. We have to manage our own personal things. And so there's just like a natural ability that we develop for doing a lot of different things and being able to have our eyes on all the different pots. The other thing about being women is that we naturally have this ability to bring life into the world, literally by bringing babies, but not just babies. We bring ideas and ways of living into the world by being ourselves. So I think we are doing ourselves a disservice by believing this myth that we can only do one thing and that we should only stick to the one thing that we are good at. Because the truth is that most of us are really good at a bunch of things. And we likely have been pushing that to the side or pushing that away because we feel that that's not acceptable in our society. In my experience, it hasn't always been easy. In fact, I feel like there's been a lot of shame, a lot of worry, a lot of fear about how to make all of this creative energy, all these passions work together. And to tell you the truth, I don't think that I have really been able to master this or achieve this. And as a matter of fact, I don't think I really want to achieve it anymore. I think that I'm becoming much more comfortable with the idea that it's okay for everything to be in flux, to be moving, to be dynamic and changing constantly. And there is no place that you're going to get to where everything just works and everything is in perfect order. And that's okay. It's okay to live in that space. If anything, I think more of us want to be able to give ourselves permission to be there, but we feel like it's bad when we haven't made up our mind. So, bottom line, it's okay if you don't know where all of it is going to go, but that doesn't mean that you have to reject it or hide it or feel shame around it. As long as you know that this is your nature and this is what you like, this is how you like to function in the world, that's okay. You're not hurting anybody. So please, like, give yourself permission to embrace this aspect of yourself. Next, let's talk about why you need to stop trying to be understood so that you can be put into a tiny little box for easy consumption. It's no surprise that we live in an interconnected world with social media and this idea of personal brands, right? So there's a lot of pressure to make ourselves easily understood, easily digestible, so that we can sell ourselves. So the tendency is to try to get rid of anything that might be too out there, too difficult to get, and try to make ourselves into the most palatable type of person that we can be, right? This is how we end up bringing that people pleasing energy back into the way that we show up in the world. And this is so common for us who have experienced trauma, who have felt invisible growing up. It's easy for us to give people what they want, but we are sacrificing our true sense of self, our authenticity for the sake of being liked. For me, one of the things that I have always imagined in my head and aspired to almost has been this feeling of being able to articulate and encapsulate the fullness of my awesomeness in such a way that people will be able to see all of me and be able to embrace every aspect of me, right? I felt like this had to do with this messaging that we hear about being authentic, that I should be able to put everything out there and hopefully have people really gravitate towards me because then they will see all of it. But honestly, I feel like this is something I have now changed my mind around because I realized that that's nearly impossible for one. We are also always changing and it's hard to encapsulate that as it's happening. It's like you can only be living your life or thinking about how to live your life for others. And you have to make a choice. And I think that if you're here, you likely want to live your life for you. I don't think that you want to be thinking about other people. And I say this because I think that a lot of us carry this people pleaser, I want everyone to accept me and to like me into our creative explorations. And even the way we live our lives, we want people to like us. This was something that took a long time for me to start to accept. I'm still working through that today. This feeling of it's okay to be me. It's okay if people don't understand me. It's okay if I'm not liked by everyone. I have said this in other episodes of the show, but there's a real tendency in our society for everybody to be liked, for everybody to be seen as perfect and as somebody that has it all together. And that is seen as something aspirational. And we all want to be that person that just seems perfect. And that steals so much of our joy because, as we know, part of being alive, part of being a human being is being messy and complex and not having answers, trying to figure out mysteries that exist in our universe. And really, that's the juicy part of life. That's what makes life interesting. If everything was laid out and everything was truly like perfect as we think it should be, what would be the point of life? Nonetheless, the pressure is out there, the pressure to be well put together and acceptable to everyone. And one of the worst things that we do while trying to achieve this is that we attract a lot of people who are not a match, a lot of people who don't see us. And for neurodivergent folks like you and I, our quirkiness is going to come out in one way or another at some point. And trying to hide that feels like denying a huge part of who we are and what makes us a fun and unique person. And I have come to a point in my life where I refuse to make myself small and underplay my gifts and my talents to make other people feel comfortable. There's just way too much good stuff in the sauce, too much uniqueness and quirkiness and fun and just so many things that are amazing when you can let yourself be human, when you don't have to pretend like you are perfect. And this brings me to another point. Most of us have a public facing self and a private self. And it's okay to have that distinction, to have that barrier, to have that boundary. You don't have to share everything about yourself with the world. I made an Instagram reel a while back about this and how people tend to have this mentality that they have to share everything about themselves on online to be relatable, to be vulnerable, but this isn't the case. It's okay to pick the things that you want to share with folks that are total strangers and don't know you, and keep some things private. I think there are some things that should remain sacred and for yourself. And honestly, I get giddy about this because there's something really juicy, really enjoyable about knowing that there's things that you're keeping to yourself that are sacred, that no one has to judge you about, and that you can just enjoy them for your own self. That is so refreshing. It's so validating and calming because, again, we have this tendency to think that we have to put it all out there, especially if you're a creative person, especially if you want to build a business or, feel like you have to put yourself out there. Hold on to aspects of yourself, hold on to things that make you happy for you, and don't feel shame around that. Honestly, this world doesn't deserve all of who we are. Now, let's talk about the importance of making space for open ended explorations and personal projects so that they can support us with our well being and joy. As I have already alluded to, it's important to let ourselves explore freely since this is the way that we are wired and it's what brings us joy. If there's a personal project that you have been thinking about, but it doesn't quite fit your current business structure, your ongoing projects, or even your current life, I want to say, please don't get discouraged and stop pursuing these projects because not everything has to be monetized. Not everything has to become this bigger thing just because someone said so. They can just be projects for you, for your own exploration, for the joy of it. It's important that we hold on to the things that we're interested in because, like I said in other episodes of the show, your personal interests are things that are going to drive your unique artistic vision, your unique artistic voice. So if you keep dismissing those things, at some point you're not even going to really know what you are into. You're going to become like everyone else and do the same exact things because you stopped listening to yourself a long time ago. If you take anything from this episode, I hope that you take this. It's okay if not every project that you take on is successful in the traditional sense. The exploration and the joy that you get from it as you're doing it is totally worth it. So don't stop yourself from exploring freely. Stop trying to squeeze yourself into a box just to fit in and be consumable. You are not a product. You are a human being and you are allowed to grow and change. This is your life. So live for you. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and hit like if you're watching on YouTube. Also, sign up for my newsletter. This is the best way for us to stay connected and for you to be the first to hear about my latest offerings. And if you want to get guided support and start to figure out what you need to be prioritizing right now with your creativity and in your life in general, but you want to do it in a low pressure, playful, and relaxed way, then check out my brand new Core Values Alignment Coaching Session. This is a 90-minute guided experience to help you uncover what truly matters to you through simple, expressive art making exercises that will invite you to tune into your true self, your true desires, and build a more aligned life based on your multi-passionate nature instead of external measures of success. You don't need any previous art experience, just the willingness to play and explore. To learn more, check out the link in the show's description. Thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you on the next one. Until then, stay creative. Bye.